Hey, what's going on, everybody? Good morning to you. I got my brother
Morning,
Joe
morning.
here with me today. How you doing, Joe?
Doing great, doing great. You doing well?
Oh yeah, man. Hey, like I told my man yesterday, 80% don't care, 20% glad at you. You might as well keep them complaints to yourself, man. You know what I'm saying? So
There you
let's
go.
just keep it going, dude.
That's
So
good.
hey, how I just met you not that long ago on the internet. So I appreciate you being here and listening, to what I'm trying to do and what we're trying to do as a group of veterans and military community. So thank you for being here and sharing your story.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, you want to introduce yourself to the listeners and maybe tell them a little bit about why you joined the military. What your background was in the service, if you want to touch on that, and then just give us a little bit of travel or a little bit of leadership that you might have had in the beginning of your career.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Well, I mean, you've probably heard this before, but I was that kid that I always wanted to be in the military. I mean,
Yeah.
from when I was a little kid, my grandfather was in World War II in the Philippines, and he never told a single story about it. But
Okay.
I don't know, something about him, and I had uncles or great uncles that were in Korea. I mean, it's just something about how I was drawn to the military, and so I did. I went through ROTC in college. I got my commission as a second lieutenant. I went in 1990. It was like three lifetimes ago. It feels like now, but went in 1990. Went to my basic course. Got awarded active duty out of my basic course. Went in right on the tail end of Desert Storm. My unit when I went to Germany. My first duty station was Germany,
Okay.
and when I went there, uh, a all the equipment and a third of the personnel were literally still in the desert. And so here I am, a young second lieutenant, field artillery officer. My first job in this 130% strength unit was communications platoon leader. And I thought, man, what's a artillery lieutenant doing as a combo platoon leader? But man, I tell you what, it's one of the best jobs I had. I had a platoon, and it was awesome. I loved it. But I did that. I did my time as a fire direction officer with one of the batteries, one of the platoons in the battery. After that, I was assistant S1. After that, I went and I was the targeting officer at brigade headquarters for brigade combat team, third brigade combat team in Germany, and that was a great experience. While I was there, I was Colt platoon leader, so we had a combat observation lasing team, and so I was the platoon leader for those guys. But then it was real interesting. Here I am. I got promoted to first lieutenant, and while I was in Germany, we moved from Germany back to Fort Lewis. The whole brigade moved. It was
Oh
a
wow.
kind of historical thing, and I was key to the planning of that whole process, getting millions of dollars and thousands of soldiers and families moved back from Germany to stateside to Fort Lewis. And then while I was there, I lost my major, my brigade fire support officer. He got school or something, and he had to leave. And so I was a first lieutenant, and they made me the brigade fire support officer. So I held a major slot for gosh, a little over a year. And the great thing was, my saving grace was I had three captains that were the task force fire support officers. And they could have made my life a living hell, but they were great guys. They would come into my office for meetings, and they would sit down and says, "Okay, Joe, what we need to do?" And it says, "Well, sir, you need to do this, sir." And so it was hilarious in a way. But yeah, so I got out in '96 while I was there at Fort Lewis, and so yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell my military career. I loved it. It gave me opportunities that I never thought I would have. I got to, like pretty much everyone else, got to see parts of the world I never thought I'd see. Of a large part through the military, I've been to 33 countries, and
Wow.
especially in Europe. Anytime I'd take leave, I'd usually take 30 days at a time and throw sleeping bags in the back of the car and hit the road.
Oh,
So
you did
yeah.
it right then. What part of Germany were you in?
I was 2 years in Baumholder, uh,
Okay.
affectionately called the Rock, and
Right. Yeah.
1 year in Mannheim. We were interesting. We had our cannons were in Baumholder, but all the maneuver units that we actually supported were forward deployed in Mannheim. So usually, what you do is you do your cannon time in Baumholder, and then they would send you over to Mannheim to do your fire support time. And actually, probably most of the time I was in the Army, I spent working with the fire support elements with the maneuver unit. We were part of a mechanized infantry combat team. So we had two companies of Bradleys and one company of M1 tanks. So
Okay.
part of the task force.
Yeah, Germany was nice. I was in Vilsek. I was on the other
Oh
side. So
yeah,
you were on the good side, man. You were on the west side of on the
yeah,
west, and you had like Frankfurt. You had all that stuff by you. But Ramstein, I don't know
oh yeah,
how built up that was, but that's
yeah,
turned into like little America now. I don't know. They got
yeah.
Cinnabon. They got Johnny Rockets.
Oh
They
yeah,
got everything over there, man.
yeah. Yeah, I know the Vilsack. We'd see that area because we'd do a month in Grafenwehr for live
Yeah.
firing exercises, and a month in Hohenfels for force on
Oh
force,
man.
kind of like little mini NTCs.
Yeah,
And so
that's what people don't know about Germany, man. You could get stuck out in the field going like, especially like you just said, Grafenhohenfels. You
yeah,
hear you going there, you know you're going to be out in the field for a little while,
oh yeah,
So get ready.
yeah. And I was part of the field artillery. We would like roll into Graf, and as soon as our vehicles would come in on the train, we would head out to the field. And the only time we'd come in from the field were like for showers and stuff. And
Yeah,
then later, when I got moved down to the maneuver units, here I am. I'm part of the mech infantry, and so I thought, oh boy, I went super light. I just had a ruck and maybe a little footlocker thingy. And I go to the field, and I'm like, okay, so when are we rolling out? And one of the platoon sergeants was like, well, let's see, we've got a live fire range in about 5 days. I think we may spend the night in the field one night there, but I was part of mech infantry, and we stayed in the barracks. And so at Graf,
culture
I'm like,
shock for you. Like, hold on a
what?
second, we're not leaving tonight. Like,
Yeah.
so you got out of the army from Germany? Did you?
No, we moved back to Fort
Oh, you went to
Lewis,
Lewis. Sorry,
the
okay, sorry. You moved on. Yeah,
entire brigade,
sorry
and
about
then
that.
got out at Lewis. Yep.
How was Lewis for you then? How did you like it?
Well, people I've seen on some of the vet pages on Facebook, they make jokes about the dream sheet. And, when I found out my dream sheet was Lewis, Carson, and I can't remember what the third one was. And the overseas was Germany, is what I requested. So I made my dream sheet. And I'll never forget, we were on an FTX at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And the first sergeant came up and said, Lieutenant Sellers. And I said, yes, first sergeant. And he said, well, we found out what your first duty station is. And I said, oh, okay. What is it? And he said, well, what's the last place you'd want to go? And I said, well, since I'm married, probably Korea. And he said, well, that's what you got. And I'm like, it sunk in a little bit. I'm like, oh, okay, first sergeant. And he busted out laughing. He said, no, sir, you're going to Germany. And I'm like, oh, so, yeah. So that was my first duty station was Baumholder, Germany.
Not bad then. How was that move when you were charged with that high position? Did you fill it out pretty good? Did you get comfortable because you had those captains around you that
Yeah.
were not busting your chops? They
Yeah.
were working with you and stuff like that.
It was pretty good. I mean, the thing that was I'm that guy that basically, when I was a young second lieutenant, I got nuked on one OER because basically I had and we've all had that. I'm sure we've had one commander that just for whatever reason didn't like us, and this guy was messed up himself. He was a battery commander, and he just we never got along. And then he nuked me on my OER, and I could have probably contested it and said, hey, respectfully, sir, this isn't me. And I even worked for the battalion S3 and could have probably had him get involved. But I was young and dumb, and I thought, what's the big deal? I know the truth, and I signed off on it. And then my next battalion commander, he gave me a heads up because he had worked at the Pentagon for so long. He said, look, Joe, I'm promoting you to first lieutenant, but this is your only promotion. And so I found out pretty early on that more than likely I was never going to make captain, which meant, of course, after a certain time, I was going to be asked to say, see ya. And
Yeah,
sure enough, with the Clinton drawdowns, I mean, I had buddies who had planned on a career in the military, and they also got cut. And so I was thinking about getting out anyway. And so it was kind of like, well, okay, I guess I will. But it was, it was something. It was an amazing experience. I'll never regret a single thing of it. But like I said, it was just one of those young and dumb things. And now, hindsight, now now I heard they actually seal, people may not know this, but they actually seal your second lieutenant OERs. They seal them when you go to the board, the captain's board, because they
okay.
know you're stupid. They know you're young and dumb and you haven't figured anything out yet. And, and
I never
so,
knew that.
so yeah, they actually seal them now, but so who knows what life could have been, but I figure, I'm a believer and I believe in God, and I know there's a purpose for everything. So I just have to trust that, if I'd made captain, got promoted, who knows? I may not be sitting here right now. We may not be talking. So
Yeah, most
just
definitely.
trust God's plan for my life and take it a day at a time.
So you don't want to get an Army recruiter in touch with you to get back in?
Yeah. Now
Or
I have enough dreams about that. I literally, I don't know if it's because this interview, I knew the interview was coming up, but I literally had a dream last night that I was back in the Army. One of my old, he was a buddy slash turned out to be one of my bosses for a little while. I had a dream about talking to him because he is the guy who put me in for an RCOM, and I got an RCOM. But at the same time, we had our differences along the way, and it wasn't always easy. But I had a dream about him last night. So yeah, nah, I'm not looking for any recruiters, but I will say that my 25-year-old son, he is right now at Fort Benning, Georgia, going
okay,
into his 4th week of basic training. He's going to be a Cav Scout,
nice.
and he's doing that, and so he's doing his basic AIT, and then he's hoping to get jump school. So he'll end up about 25 weeks at Fort Benning, Georgia.
Oh, nice. Right in the summertime, man.
Oh yeah,
Right now. Fort Benning, man, it's like a lose-lose. You go in. We just talked to my buddy last night. He said he went in the wintertime. He said he was from Chicago and he still was freezing. I said, that's crazy. And you
oh
go in
yeah,
the summertime and you're gonna melt. So
oh
yeah,
yeah,
you gotta love Fort Benning, man.
oh yeah.
How did your son get involved in the Army? Did he try to do like the civilian side first and like, hey, this
Yeah.
isn't cutting it, and said, let me get out of here?
Well, he didn't have it easy. I mean, he's made a lot of stupid choices, and we're all responsible for our own stupid choices.
Yeah.
Well, when he was in high school, he took a pocket knife to school one day. He didn't clean it out of his pocket. He took it and he got caught with it. So he ended up at an alternative school for a little bit, and then, long story short, he ended up at it's called the Appalachian Youth Challenge Academy in Harlan, Kentucky.
Okay.
And so it's a military-based 6-month program for troubled teens to kind of go through to kind of get their heads screwed back on straight. And he absolutely flourished. I mean, he did amazing. He was part, I think they called it honor platoon, the guys who did really well.
Yeah.
So he came back and he immediately started trying to get into the military.
Okay.
And that was over 7 years ago. And so what had happened was in 2012, his mom, my first wife, almost 25 years, a lot of us see those Camp Lejeune commercials, and I will admit, guys, if you posted the Camp Lejeune bottled water, now it exceeds Bud Light sales. I don't hold it against you, but I don't laugh too hard. I laugh tongue in cheek, but my wife, my first wife, she actually had 3 forms of cancer. Her mom had a precancerous lung condition, and then her dad, the Marine, had 5 forms of cancer. My wife died 2012. Her mom died a year later, and then her dad died 2 years later. And she was in the womb and stationed, or in the womb and born at Camp Lejeune. And so she was in that housing area that was contaminated with the contaminated water. So when she died, my son, choices, he put 13 marks on his arm. And so I always taught my son, I said, look, you know when to shut your mouth, but if you're ever asked a direct question, you do not lie. My dad always said he can take a thief over a liar any day, so don't lie. So when he went to MEPS, his recruiter at the time was coaching him, saying, look, dude, if something happened when you're a kid, don't worry about it. But at MEPS, they asked a question, have you ever self-harmed? And he said, yes. And as soon as he said yes, that was it. And he was pretty much blacklisted. I mean, he tried Army National Guard, he tried Marine Corps for years, he tried Army. And then I guess with, the current strength of the military and all, he ended up getting a psychological waiver, and they said, nope, you're good to go. He got a criminal waiver because that's what put him at the alternative school, helped put him there, was he ended up in jail for 30 days because some buddies talked him into helping him steal something. And he's the only one that got called out, of course.
Yeah.
So he had to get a criminal waiver too. But through all that, though, he fought for 7 years. And so I asked him, I said, what's your favorite part about basic training? And he said, nothing. I said, I did the typical loving father thing. I said, man, embrace the suck,
Pretty much, man. Yeah. Hey, enjoy.
Yeah.
He's gonna be able to laugh at it when he's done, though. When he gets done, he'll be able to laugh back at it. Basic training is always a good time. So, hey, sorry, but I'm sorry. I heard that when you told me the other day about your scenario, your wife and your family. I'm sorry to hear that. Obviously, that's not good, devastating. And what did your transition like out? Because you got out the military before that happened. What did it look like for you? You said you sort of knew that you were going to get out, but did you have a plan?
Yeah, it was difficult because, to be honest, I mean, and we all understand it too. You know, we have we have spouses that can really support us, and we have spouses who just hate it. She really struggled, and she really struggled while I was in the Army. She didn't understand that I did not own my life. She didn't understand that I could be called up in a moment's notice to get deployed, you know, even just for training without warning. She didn't get that, and so she struggled a lot. And I know she was always proud of me, but she really struggled with it. So when it came time to get out, it was like this two-edged sword. I was actually, you know, I'd been back from Germany for a little over a year at Fort Lewis, and she fell in love with Germany. I mean, she loved Germany. So when I was getting out in Fort Lewis, the only thing she could think about was figuring out a way to get back to Germany. So she didn't want me to stay in the Army, but she wanted to go back to Germany. And of course, we had 3 years of pretty awesome duty stations there in Germany that we made the most of and loved it. So it was tough. It was like, well, you know, I'm being separated. And so, you know, I did the whole, you know, the classes, the transition classes and stuff. But it's kind of like when I went into the Army, it was a shocker because I was a 3-year scholarship winner in college. Okay. And except when I was supposed to be told, hey, are you getting active duty or guard? That's when the Berlin Wall came down. So I don't know who you guys who are listening, you may have served in that period. You remember how everything was in flux. It's like, oh gosh, you know, what's next? What are we doing now? So when I went in, I didn't get active. I ended up winning that by competing for it through my basic course. And so it was kind of a, you know, I didn't have a plan B after college. And so it was kind of a time of upheaval. And then when I got out of the Army, it's kind of like, well, this wasn't necessarily my plan A, you know? And so, you know, I got out in Washington State, stayed there. I just, you know, I remember living I was a volunteer youth pastor at the time. And I literally, when I left the base, we moved into a guest apartment of one of my students' parents. And so we lived there, and I can remember just the transition time. It's like, okay, what am I going to do? You know, when I got out of the Army, it's the only time in my life I actually applied for unemployment because I couldn't figure out, you know, what do I even want to do? You know, right? Because you have your career track laid out in front of you. Something totally derails that, and I'm like, okay, now what? And so I struggled for a while. I didn't know, I didn't even know what I wanted to be when I grew up. You know, more or less to say. And so I did found an amazing program where I got into tech school, got the GI Bill, got started on that. And before I got my first payment for the GI Bill, I ended up getting on as a youth pastor in a church that they had just lost a youth pastor, and they asked if I would step in temporarily. And then a few months later, went ahead and interviewed and actually took the job full time. So, but I still remember that time sitting in this little garage turned apartment thinking, you know, what am I going to do now? You know, do I start my own business? Do I go back to the world of IT? Because, you know, I'd always, before I went in the Army, I was kind of planning on going IT. And then when I first got out of the Army, I was thinking maybe IT is the answer, you know, working computers, networks. And so it was, I can still remember distinctly just the, you know, what in the world do I do now?
How was that financially for you? Did you have a little nest egg? Did you save up a little bit, or I mean,
man,
or did it happen? Like, go ahead.
I can close my eyes and I can smell the smells of the castle that I was sitting in Germany because one of my buddies, he had teamed up with some financial group, and it was one of those classic, hey, come eat dinner with us and hear about our financial, you know, packages that we offer. So here I was a young second lieutenant. At that time, I was making better money than I'd ever seen in my life. And, you know, and so I was sitting there and they told the classic, you know, I was in my mid-20s, I guess. And they're like, hey, if you start saving now, you know, when you retire, blah, blah, blah. And I'm that typical guy that's like, dude, I've got my whole life ahead of me. I didn't save. I had, like, when I got out of the Army, I think I had 0 in savings. We were living mostly paycheck to paycheck. And I think when I got out, I don't think the family even charged us for the apartment. Wow. And so it was just a real time of okay, something's got to happen. And so I did not have a nest egg. I had not prepared. I was, you know, I was the bookkeeper for the family, and I definitely should have obviously taken some finance courses because I sucked. You know, I did not plan well, and I did not budget well. So it was rough. I didn't really have a plan B, like I said.
Right. Once you got that job as a youth pastor, did the ball start getting rolling in the right direction?
Yeah, it started doing a lot better. Basically, I've heard people say, I've listened to hundreds of audiobooks, I guess, when I go walking, but people say all the time that our education system is really failing students because there needs to be like a life course and a finance course
Yeah.
and
Down
even
with
an
the checkbook
entrepreneurial
back in the day. Yeah,
course.
all that, man.
Because I never understood. My parents lived paycheck to paycheck,
Right.
and and so that's I just didn't know any better. I didn't train myself. I didn't learn, and so it was a struggle. Even when I finally got that job, and the big thing about that was it was a job with benefits. So I actually had insurance. That's the other thing. Military. It's like, oh, I hurt. Well, let me go on sick call. And so you don't even think about those things. You take it for granted. It's like, well, hey, people complain sometimes about the medical services in the military, but at the same time, well, at least you got them. You don't have to worry about, oh, okay, I went to the ER and now I need to find $500 or $1,000 to pay these people.
Right.
It was like, nope, taken care of. So that was a shift too. But it was nice having that job, making some decent money and having insurance. So
Right.
that definitely helped after that.
What what did sick call and stuff like look like? You just said it a little bit, like it was there, but what did it look like for someone like you that was always working? Like, were you, I don't know, same stigma as most, like if you go to sick call, you're kind of weak, you go there, like, stuff like that. So you got
well, I'll go ahead and get up on my soapbox for just a little bit here, because anytime I meet a veteran, whether they're parked in the veterans parking space or whether they have a sticker on the back window or a hat or something, I start conversations with them, and I kind of step out on a limb and maybe get more personal than they want to at first, but I ask them, I say, have you ever did you look at disability? And so, because what happened was when I got out of the Army, my knees, like so many of us, my knees were shot. I'd had I messed up my calf in a landing at airborne school.
Okay.
With the running and the equipment and the wear and tear on the body, my knees were shot, my hips were shot. My neck was straight as a board, headaches every single day, ringing in my ears. But I just basically said, well, hey, and I know everyone listening to this right now, you've said this yourself. There's guys worse off than me. Suck it up and drive on.
Just said it yesterday. Someone just said it. Devin just said it yesterday. Everyone says that, man. We all, like you said, we all say it.
We say mission first, people always, but it's really, we all know it's really mission first. And so it's like, suck it up, rub some dirt on it and go. If you cut your arm off, rub some dirt on it and go. And so I got out and I did not, I basically said, well, there's people worse than me. And, I would complain about my knees and I'd see somebody with no legs. And I'm like, well, hey, it could be worse.
Right.
And guys, you heard my story there at the beginning. It literally took my wife getting 3 forms of cancer before I finally took a move, because what I did, I went to the vet office here, the Veterans Administration here in my hometown. And I'll never forget Mr. Talley. I'm sitting there we had like $600,000 worth of medical bills with her cancer. And so I was looking for something that the day that Obama signed a bill to give support to Camp Lejeune victims, that day, it was in August of 2012. That same day she had a stroke. And so she spent her last month in hospital beds until she passed away on Labor Day 2012. And right before that happened, though, I went and filed a claim. And while I was sitting there in his office, we got all the information about her claim. And he looked at me and said, "Did you serve?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he says, "What in?" I said, "Artillery." He said, "Do you have a ring in your ears?" I said, "Yeah, but I just put up with it." He goes, No, you need to file a claim." And I'm like, well, all right. So I did, reluctantly. And so long story short, over the next 8 years, I would start using the medical care, find out, hey, well, this is wrong. Well, hey, that's in your medical file from the military. Long story short, it was a long 8-year journey, but I went from zero, nothing, to that 10%, that initial 10%. And right now I'm 100% permanent in PT, 100% PT. And, like I said, vets, listen, if you're listening and you got aches and pains and it is in your folder, it is in your medical file, it can be tied back to service related, man, look, I'll tell you to suck it up and drive on right to the VA office, and
Yeah. Do it to
file that
somewhere else.
claim,
Yeah.
suck up your pride, because listen, guys, you did your time. I have a buddy, he was in Vietnam. He was a helicopter pilot. He was around Agent Orange all the time. He's a pharmacist, so he's not hurting for money, but yet he found out that he had prostate cancer.
Okay.
And so he walks in the VA, gray hair, good looking man. And he's still a helicopter pilot in heart, I think. But they looked at him, they said, diabetes or prostate cancer. And he's like, how do you know that? And he goes, because most Vietnam vets that era come in here, they have one or both of those because of Agent Orange. And so he got almost immediately 100%. And some guy I know said, well, what's he need that for? He's got money. And I said, whoa, pump the brakes. I said, he did his time.
Yeah.
He served his country. He paid the price. And so he earned it. And so veterans, if you're sitting here listening to this right now and you're like, well, yeah, I've got these aches and pains from the Army, from the Marine Corps, from the Navy, from the Air Force, Coast Guard, whatever it is. Listen, guys, go ahead and file the claim. If you have a ringing in your ears, that alone will get you 10% and could get you at least medical care. I mean, it's a place to start. And there's no, it's not embarrassing. It's not something that you did not earn because you did your time. And vets, if you're listening to this right now, you and I both know nobody understands what you've gone through in the military unless they've been there. They just don't understand, especially in this me society we live in today. And it's all about me and what's in it for me society. And I have my rights. They don't understand just the simple fact that in the military, you have no rights. You don't own yourself. You do what you're told, when you're told, how you're told, where you're told, and you say, yes, sir, and drive on. And they just don't get that. And so you've done your time. So listen, guys, if you've got aches and pains and problems, sleep apnea. One of my biggest things on my chart was sleep apnea, because I got injured. Long story, I won't even tell it, but it was a forced fun event. I got injured, and so it messed up my sinuses during this event. It was a military sponsored event. And so I have obstructive sleep apnea from where my sinuses got so screwed up. And that was the thing that I knew. I snored. I knew I would wake myself up not breathing.
Yeah.
But guys, listen, if you have sleep apnea, I mean, that could be a killer, because it could cause congestive heart failure. Yeah. So I have a CPAP upstairs in my bedroom that I sleep with every night, even when I take a nap, provided by the VA, because they're taking care of me. And I know there's horror stories about, the medical system and all, but listen, guys, I'll have to say the VA has taken good care of me. Was everything perfect? No, not at all. But at the same time, I'm so thankful. And it was because, like I said, that VA rep sat there and said, did you turn in a claim for yourself? And that's what got the ball rolling. So guys, listen, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Go for it, guys. And seriously, go for it.
Yeah, hey, congratulations on that, because I'm something similar to you. I got out with zero myself, and I had stuff. I broke my foot. I hurt my sinuses. I had deployments, and I got nothing. And I had everything. It took me 5 years, and I got from 0 to 100 permanent and total, man. So I love hearing other veterans tell their stories, because you never gave up. You persevered, or you could have gave up. Like, man, I got 10%. I'm good. You know what I mean? Like, that's what some people do. They get their first rating and they say, oh, I'm good. But like, there's so much more out there for you. Like you said, the sleep study. If you guys are in the military, get your sleep study done before you get out, because they can service connect you. Yes, they can. People think that you can't get service connected when you get out. You can get your sleep study done, and you can get sleep apnea service connected secondary. Mm-hmm. But that's going to take a little bit more work. You got to get a Nexus, or you're going to need to get buddy stay. You look on these veteran forms, like you said, you see all different stuff. Hey, I didn't need a Nexus. Hey, I needed a buddy statement and a Nexus. Hey, you're lying. Well, there's too much misinformation out there, because there's people out here doing it. People were telling me that you couldn't get sleep apnea diagnosed after the military, but I made them eat them words, but in a good way, because they didn't know it, but now they're informed and said, oh, you can do that. Like people are misinformed. So yeah, you brought up great points on all that stuff. And like, if you, swallow your pride and carry on to the VA and just get what's available to you. You know what I mean? So you never even probably did a sleep study when you were in the service. That probably all came after. It's like you had a delayed onset, like, disability time, right? Because you didn't really. did you even go through like see a VA service provider like when you got out to try to get an initial rating, or was that like something that was obsolete?
Well, if you guys are still in the military, the advice I'll give you is, excuse me, is please get stuff documented. Once again, don't suck it up and drive on, but instead get stuff documented so it does go in your file. And because with me, when I went through my transitioning, the guy at least said, make sure it's in your record.
Okay.
So, I mean, I did some little piddly. Yeah, I did one more thing, and I did put something on a form, but basically that was like as I was leaving the military. I didn't go to the sick calls, some of the sick calls I should have, because I sucked it up and drove on.
Right.
And so it didn't get in there necessarily. My worst part of my body right now is my neck. Multiple accidents. I'm a 5-jump chump, but still I had 2 absolutely awful landings. And so through injuries and all, my neck is screwed up, but I get 0 for my neck. 0.
Wow. The main thing that's messed up the most, you get nothing, but that's wild.
So make sure you get it documented. And then for you guys who maybe you've gotten 10% and you're like, man, 100 is a mile away, 100 years away.
Yeah.
And I've always heard that 90 to 100 is like the longest mile, trying to get that final 10%. And one thing I will tell you guys is, at least in my area, I don't know if this is true everywhere, but in my area right now, it's gotten a little better. Okay. Because they're actually using civilian doctors and PAs to do the C&P exams. And I feel like it's a little better because there are some horror stories. Like I know a Vietnam vet went to the VA up in Johnson City, Tennessee, and he went in, this knucklehead doctor had never even served himself. This Vietnam vet suffering from severe PTSD comes in, and this doctor looks him in the face and says, well, Mr. So-and-so, the gravy train stops here. I'm reducing you. And you're just like
unreal,
mind blown. And so you hear those kinds of stories, but now you go out to these civilian PAs, and I had great experiences with them. And ladies and gentlemen, the thing I will tell you is, if they ask you how you're doing, don't suck it up and drive on and say, oh, I'm great, I'm good. Because guess what? They write down and say, he said he was great. He said it was good. And so they record that, or they write that down in your record. Oh, and then and I remember one of my C&P exams I was going to in Knoxville, Tennessee. On the way there, literally, I'm like streaming YouTube videos from lawyer offices.
There you go.
Like what do I was nervous because I knew this was going to be a big exam, a big key point, turning point possibly in my battle to get it. And so I'm driving, and what I heard over and over and over again, guys, take it, I'm not a lawyer, I don't work for Legal Shield or anything either. So, take it for what you will. But basically what they said to us when you sit down with those C&P examiners is, don't go from your best day, go from your worst day. Like if they say, how are you doing today? Don't say, well, wow, today for the first time in 3 weeks, I don't have a headache. So don't go, hey, I'm good.
Wrong one to tell. That's the wrong one to tell that to.
You say, well, I have migraines at least 3 times a week. And at least 3 times a week, I end up having to stop work and go lay down because I can't even see the screen in front of my eyes because I have a migraine, and I have headaches every single day of my life, and so go from your worst day. Don't ever lie, guys. Do not lie. There is a thing called fraud.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you lie, sooner or later you will get busted. But man, just tell the truth. But at the same time, as you tell the truth, don't lie at all, but tell the truth of, hey, go for my worst day. Tell them about your struggles. Tell them about the dark times of your life. Don't suck up your pride. Don't sit there and say, oh, I'm good, I can handle it. It's no biggie. There's worse people than me. At least I have 4 limbs. Don't just go from that, I'm okay. But if you're fighting for disability, guys, go from your worst day. Just be honest. Don't lie, but tell them your worst day. Tell them what it's like. Because if you don't tell them, no one's going to tell them for you. You gotta be there. And when you think about those things.
Yeah, that's a great point, because that's not really the end of the road either. And like you said, first of all, like you said, yeah, the VA is like overwhelmed, so they've been outsourcing and like using civilians. So that's hit or miss. So it seems, because I did my reevaluation, and the first doctor I had, it was a teleconference thing, and she got on like 30 minutes late. and she was horrible. And I'm like, I don't really even feel comfortable talking to you. And then she just hung up the conference. So I had to call the VA back and reschedule and tell her that the provider hung the video call up on me. So that was kind of crazy. I was like, where's your bedside mat? You coming on here 30 minutes late and you just think I'm just going to like bow down to you just because you're a doctor, like I've been, you know what I mean? Or something like that. But anyways, that's beyond the fact. But yeah, you're right about that. It could be a hit or miss. It's a crapshoot either way. But like you said, you don't go in there and tell them, like you don't go in there on your Sunday's best and tell them everything's amazing, sitting there eating an ice cream cone and say, hey, my back's amazing. I touched my toes today. Can you imagine? Because they're going to write that on your record. Then they're going to send that file to Joe, who's going to do this review and say, oh, he was eating ice cream in his Sunday's best, man. Let's give him 10%. You know what I mean? He wasn't doing that bad. Then you're going to be right back in there again. But then you're going to say you don't have time. I don't want to do it. They only gave me 10%. But you don't know what you have to do. Get informed. Talk to somebody that already knows what to do. We're not telling you to go in there and lie, but you have to go in there and proceed and do the right things to make sure you get taken care of. So great points, man. I mean,
and the other thing with that too is when you do these exams, don't push through the pain.
Right.
Okay. Because that's what we do too. Because we're taught, the number one core tenet of being in the military is suck it up and drive on.
Right.
Mission first, suck it up and drive on. And so don't push through the pain. And I actually had one examiner, like I had one of those doctors at the VA. He downgraded my ankle because I blew up my ankle on my last field training exercise, and he reduced me. But then this other examiner that I went to towards the end of my journey of getting 100%, she saw me grimacing. I mean, literally tears were swelling up my eyes as I was pushing through the pain to try this movement exercise. And she saw me and she said, Mr. Sellers, don't push through the pain. When it hurts, stop. Because obviously, can we move it further? Sure we can. Does it hurt like crap? Absolutely. But I'm a man. I can take it.
Right.
Not today. Today don't take it. Today say, okay, right there, and it's hurting like crap. And where's my Advil? So yeah.
No, that's awesome, man. Thanks for sharing that. What's something that you wish you would have known before you got out the military that could have helped you or that could help some other people that are in right now?
Well, part of it I've said, if you're still in the military, guys, go ahead and get stuff documented as much as you can. Don't suck it up before you get out. And if you are in the military, I do, whether you take a budgeting class or a finance class, I do encourage you. It is so different. There's so many things I feel like we take for granted in the military that, the level of suck can be high, but at the same time, there's so many things that we don't have to think about, like even little things like when I got out of the Army, I went to my closet a few weeks before I was getting out and I looked and it was like 90% gray and green and about that much civilian. And I'm like, oh, well, I may need to change my wardrobe a little bit, And so little things like that when you find out that you are going to be separating, man, go ahead and start, start now. If you're just gotten in the military, start with the end in mind. That's one thing you'll hear a lot of folks say and preach and teach is start with the end in mind. Great. And just know, what? Yes, maybe you do want to stay in the Army or the military for 20 to 30 years. Maybe you do want to retire, and that's great. But let's face it, guys, none of us are promised tomorrow. We could sign off from this call. I could go right out in my front yard here and get hit with a truck. We never know. I could have a heart. Nobody knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, you're right.
So plan accordingly. We're taught how to plan in the Army and the military. We have a plan A and a plan Z, and we know no plan, survives contact with the enemy. Well, life is about the same way, but I just encourage you, plan now. Don't wait until you get out. Don't wait until 2 weeks before you're getting out and say, oh, I guess I should have a plan, but start making plans now, especially financially investing into your future. Can't encourage you that enough. I guess that's probably my biggest regret is, when I was making some decent money, I could have been setting some aside. Yeah. But I was only living for the moment. And I think that's part of the uncertainty when you just don't know from one minute to the next in the military what you're going to be doing. When you live in uncertainty, yes, you want to make the most of every minute, but at the same time, you got to think, where am I going to be 10 years from now? I got out of the Army and I got the GI Bill and I had 10 years to use it. And I'm like, 10 years, to a young mid-20s guy, 10 years, man, that's an eternity. Well, 9 years into it, I'm like, oh, I haven't used my GI Bill. oh, I'm about to lose
Man.
it. And time goes in a blink of an eye, gentlemen. So plan accordingly. Start now. If you're still in the military, start planning your exit strategy, and not to focus on it and get short timers disease. That's not what I'm advocating. Do your job 100% and invest into it, but at the same time, think about your future and plan accordingly.
All right, appreciate you sharing that. What's one word that you could sum up your military experience with?
Resilience.
Okay.
So resilience, improvising, adapting, and overcoming, as one person put it, I guess, but just really, you are tougher than you realize. One thing the military has trained you is how to be tough, how to be resilient, and no matter what comes your way. That is why, if people were smart, they would hire you over some of these people that have never been through the military, because you know resilience. You know what it means, that when times get tough, you buckle down and you push through. And so I would say resilience, and I believe every one of you can have an amazing resilience, and that can be an edge you would have over other people in the job market, for example. So
okay, what was your favorite duty? What was your favorite place you visited? I'm thinking Germany, but I could be wrong.
Man. Germany was amazing. I was in Baumholder. People were like, "Oh man, it sucks here." And I remember driving through. I can close my eyes and picture driving. They had a shopette, and it had like an electronic store and a little shopette. You could drive through there on a Friday night, and these soldiers that were whining about being stationed in Baumholder, they'd have an armful of movies. Okay, I'm dating myself. VHS tapes on one arm, and 2 cubes of beer under the other arm. Well, 2 things. One, they had American beer. Why are you drinking American beer in a country that's been making beer longer than we've been a nation? And then they're staying in their rooms watching movies all weekend. There's a taxi right down the corner and a bus in a train station.
At a train station. You go anywhere you need, man. You get on the ICE train, go to Frankfurt, Munich, man.
Yeah.
That's what we said. I'm going to talk to another Army buddy from Germany after I talk to you, and we're probably going to hit on the same thing, man. We used to work in DFAC. Why are these soldiers lined up on Saturday morning? Why are you guys not like in Prague or something like that? You know what I mean? Like, we would die to be out there doing something. So,
and that's what I do. That's what I do. I throw groceries in the back of the car. It's not quite as good now because they've closed a lot of these Forest Service roads. But back in the 90s, man, those roads were open. You could pull off into the woods and sleep in a sleeping bag in your car and travel Europe on a shoestring budget. But it's like, when you're living in Germany, it's like, hey, let's go on a picnic. Okay, where do you want to go? You want to go to France? Nah, I went to France last week. Let's go to Luxembourg. Yeah, let's go to Luxembourg.
There you go.
So I mean,
let's go to Switzerland. Let's go to Italy. Like, let's drive. So if you guys are in Europe or you're going to get over there or whatever, even Japan, or if you go anywhere overseas, get your passport, go travel, take advantage of the $30 flights that you can go do. Like, live your life, man. Live your life. Don't sit in the barracks. So you want to share anything that you're working on now, or any last thoughts that you want to share with the viewers?
Yeah. Right now, I spent 17 years in full-time church ministry. That was an amazing season of my life. Missionary. I went back to Germany as a missionary, 3 years military, and then over 8 years as a missionary. Came back I was a youth pastor here in Tennessee for a little bit. Went back to the IT world in 2013, a little after my wife passed away. And guys, listen, if anyone felt sorry for me, I do thank you for that. But at the same time, listen, guys, I'm not going to lie. I'm a blessed man. If you see me on Facebook, you're going to see the wife of the woman I call the wife of my second youth, with my 22-month-old baby boy. And so, I mean, life really is good. But I'm working on right now being a life coach, and actually working with you guys, working with vets who are either transitioning, they've recently transitioned, they're about to transition. And a buddy of mine who works for the VA, he said that, lots of times that first year is really tough, and then they hit another bump in the road about 10 years down the road when things seem to get tough again. So as a life coach, I want to come alongside vets and really help them. If their life is in chaos and out of balance, I want to help them find that balance through coaching, and so they can really have an exceptional life where they're at. So that's what I'm working hard on right now. And I could see doing that till the day I die. I'm not going to sell computers till the day I die, but I could see doing that till the day I die. Yeah,
most definitely. And you, like you said, 22 is 22 too many, man. we all know people that have struggled. So check on your friends, check on your old soldiers, even your old leadership, man. It doesn't, just because someone had higher rank than you doesn't mean you can't do a welfare check on, you know what I mean? If we're probably all out of the military by now, or if you're out, you don't have to go at parade rest or attention if you call your old commander or something like that. I just talked to one of my old first commanders the other day, and it's like, yeah, we're just normal people, man. Like at the end of the day, but we all took that sacrifice, upon ourselves. So where can they find you if they want to get in touch? You got anywhere that you want to plug in, or?
Yeah, you can look me up on Facebook, Joseph H. Sellers, Sellars.
Okay.
But you can find me on Facebook. I've got a website, www.t4bt.us, today for a better tomorrow life coaching. You can find me there on the web. It's not a great website, but at least get some contact information there. Okay. Or you can just email me, Joe, Joe at T4bt.us. Joe at T4bt.us. Email me if you want to talk. Love to talk to you. Love to see if I could help you out. But we basically got a 12-week program that we do. We've got a Facebook group that's starting up here shortly. It's Your Next Mission. So it just went, it's live, but it's still a private, it is a private group. But if you look on Facebook, Your Next Mission, and that's what I want to do is I want to help veterans find their next mission in life and to keep living and have an exceptional life. So,
okay. All right. Well, I'll get that information from you and I'll put it into the video when we launch it too. So
excellent.
Hey, Joe, I appreciate you, bro, man. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and hopefully we can keep connected in the future. If you guys know Joe, if you don't know Joe, if you don't know me, you guys want to get on here, reach out and let us know that you want to get on this podcast, way you can share your story. So, bro, it's been a pleasure. I hope you have a good rest of your day. And thank you guys all for listening. Have a good one.
All right. Thanks a lot, man.
All right. Take care.
Have a good one.